Something very interesting has happened. And again, I heard Hillary Clinton via XM today on ABC News saying this is a big step for globalism. I've seen Herman van Rompuy, the head of the EU, who met many times with Muammar Gaddafi in the last year, praising the fact that the UN ordered this new kinetic military action, not allowed to call it a war, very Orwellian term, and that this shows how the nation state is basically dead. That the UN gives the order, and the individual countries are not consulted. Their militaries are now bound to the UN and NATO, and the war starts, and the U.S. Congress was not even consulted. And they're now admitting what I pointed out a week and a half ago when all this started. I said, this is a big deal. At least George Bush went and got a sign-off from Congress for military force. Now, they were supposed to get a full declaration of war. It's still unconstitutional and an impeachable offense, but at least there was some ceremonial involvement of Congress. And now there was no involvement of Congress, and so Obama is set to address the nation very, very soon. In fact, I was seeing a report earlier. I think it's tonight. You guys pull that up. Just search Obama to address nation on Libya. I think it's tonight, but the point is, I just heard it in passing, driving in on 5:90 a.m. I was listening to the news. I meant to check that when I got into the studio. But the point is that all of this is happening. And they know people are getting upset about this on the left and the right in that controlled paradigm. So we need to discuss that further. And I'm going to go to your phone calls here in a moment. But big things are happening. And our own media is not really reporting on this. Sure, it's in the Associated Press. Sure, it's in the Financial Times of London. But it's just on the back burner. Egyptian government bans protest. That's the Financial Times of London headline. And they go on to report that the women are being raped by the Western-backed new government that are such little Democrats and such little humanitarians. All they did was remove one thug, Hosni Mubarak, who was the big U.S. ally, and both candidates of the two parties that are set, either one, they're neck and neck to win in elections, though those have been canceled for a while, are al-Baradi, the former head of the Atomic Energy Agency, UN globalist puppet, and a Muslim Brotherhood candidate with connections to al-Qaeda. And, of course, al-Qaeda is on record. Even Glenn Beck has a headline that inadvertently the U.S. is backing al-Qaeda in Libya. No, there's nothing inadvertent about it. In fact, let me find the actual headline on that instead of just paraphrasing it. It's an accident that al-Qaeda is involved. Oh, really? Well, I've got the Fox News headline from last October. Anwar al-Awlaki, #3 in al-Qaeda, dines secretly at the Pentagon with the Secretary of the Army and the top brass, and then runs every major terror attack in Western Europe and the U.S., including the Fort Hood shooting, the Christmas Day underwear bombing, the shoe bomber, the Times Square bomber, and the 7/7 bombings. Of course, U.S. agent. But when I say U.S. agent, I mean the criminal groups that have taken over our country. The globalists, the big corporations that are sucking America dry, ran the attacks on the Serbs in the 90s, ran the attacks in the 80s on the Russians. They use them to stage terror attacks. Many times the low-level terrorist doesn't even know they're being funded by the military-industrial complex. But the military-industrial complex needs that to have TSA now at checkpoint sticking their hands down your pants. They need the pretext to warrantlessly listen to your phones and read your email, to take over society, to get hundreds of billions a year in no-bid domestic anti-terror contracts. This is how the military-industrial complex is taking the once-free republic over. And countries all over the world are using anti-terror systems to crack down on their populations. In China, in Western Europe, in Russia, every government loves tyranny. And there's the Fox News headline, Beck, U.S. unwittingly aiding al-Qaeda in Libya. Oh, really? When this all started 4.5 weeks ago, I pointed out from just mainline reportage that it was al-Qaeda who's repeatedly tried to overthrow and assassinate Muammar Gaddafi because he's secular. And he came out and started saying, al-Qaeda is attacking me. Al-Qaeda works for America. Well, it doesn't really work for America. It works for these big mega corporations that are bigger than most governments that are not free market. But here's the headline, Financial Times of London, Egyptian government bans protest. Will there be an invasion for libertarian reasons? The Egyptian authorities have moved to ban demonstrations, saying that participants would be detained. Oh, isn't detained right out of 1984. No provocative movements or protest gatherings or organized marches or demonstrations will be allowed. Well, really, they don't. First, they said you got to have a permit to own a gun 50 years ago in New York City. Then they stopped issuing the permits. Then about a decade ago, it actually, more than that, it started more than a decade ago with Hillary Clinton. About 12 years ago, towards the end of his administration, in the middle of his second administration, he started saying free speech zones. You've got to have a permit to march. Well, yeah, to block roads, but not to be on the street corner. And that got overturned in court. And now Obama, just last week, had a bunch of peaceful people arrested who were pro-war outside the White House and anti-war. No protests, no permits issued. Oh, Gaddafi won't allow protesters who have their own tanks and their own airplanes who are U.S. and British Special Forces backed. But again, when I say U.S. and British Special Forces, our military doesn't work for us anymore. They work for the same big mega banks that 11 and a half years ago, according to Bloomberg, signed a secret deal through the insurance companies they own with the Veterans Affairs Office to steal all death benefits of U.S. troops. From World War II on, they have them sign on, take part of their check, and put it into a life insurance policy. They made a deal to steal it all. Are those terrorists? You bet they are. But see, I'm not supposed to talk about that. To be patriotic, I just sit down, shut up, and go along with what the system puts out. So no protest allowed. Sounds like D.C. A few years ago, making the Obama deception, I was in Washington, D.C., and I could be at the Washington Monument in the middle of the park, 200 yards away from the monument, and cops would come over on video and would say, you're not allowed to film. And I had C-Think, a big independent film channel crew with me. They were also making a documentary about me while I was making my documentary. And they said, well, sir, we tried to get permits, but the city of D.C. doesn't issue them. They said, you know, as long as we're in a park or something, it's allowed. Oh, land of the free, home of the brave. And they said, we're going to arrest you. It's all on tape. Then 2 years ago, the Kansas City Star reported on this. My guys were at a city park a half mile from the Kansas City Federal Reserve. This is online. It's on YouTube. And again, the newspaper picked up on it. And armed security guards came a half mile to the park. They were on a hill videotaping the Federal Reserve and said, give us your IDs. They didn't have any authority, but I've told my guys not to try to get arrested. And they went ahead and gave security guards, federal security guards, off their jurisdiction, their IDs, and they said, now go. And they said, no, man, we're videotaping. We're making a film about the Federal Reserve. And they put their hands on their guns and said, go or else. And my guys left. But see, that was the death of America right there. That's the death of America. We had Austin police, along with the feds, when they were having a federal news conference up there when Joe Stack reportedly flew that plane in. And they first said, move off the property, though the rest of the press could be there. And we told them who we were with. You know, we're big media. But even we were small media, so what? Then get off the street. Then just don't videotape, period. See, it's all about, we got guns, we're the government. You're the little people. And so that's what's happening now in Egypt. But the globalists, oh, the North Vietnamese are bad, they torture, but we're good when we torture. It's all this doublespeak. All right, I'm done ranting on that front, just pointing out the hypocrisy. James, Sean, Timber, Joe, and others. First-time callers today, 877-789-ALEX. And if you're a foreign caller and can't get through on the regular toll-free line, you can just dial 512-646-1776 with a U.S. country code in front of it. Your calls and a ton of news straight ahead.